I'm Rick Hugh. I'm an orthopedic surgeon and co-founder of Tactile Orthopaedics. Today I've got Mike James, who's one of our senior residents at the University of Calgary, who's had some really strong experience with the tactile knee, and just going to get a feel for his experiences and his thoughts on the product. Mike, thanks very much for joining us. As we begin, just if you could tell me a little bit about who you are, what your past experiences are, and what influences you've had in your orthopedic surgery training.
Well, thanks for having me, Dr. Hugh. I'm an R5 here in Calgary. I came to medicine a little bit late. I was a former professional dancer. Prior to going into medicine, I had a hip arthroscopy later in my career. And I was inspired to go into medicine by my orthopedic surgeon. Just the whole experience was quite inspirational, and I thought maybe I could make some inroads into dance sports medicine.
Great, and so your experience as being a professional dancer, professional athlete, has that really provided you some insights into training and into becoming technically excellent?
Yeah, definitely. Dance, attracts perfectionists much like surgery does, and the mainstay of your training in dance is just practice and repetition. I did certain movements thousands of times before I ever did them on stage, some movements tens of thousands of times, and there's also a huge emphasis on warming up in the morning. We did a 90-minute class where we just repeated the same movements over and over again just to get our bodies warm for the rest of the day, and we did that all throughout our career. It never changed. You never graduate from having to warm up. So I, given the stakes are somewhat higher in surgery, I thought there'd be a similar approach to obtaining proficiency.
So when you started training and doing procedures, what was the level of practice for that and technical learning for that? Did you notice a difference between what you were used to what you were doing in your new career?
Yeah, it was definitely much less structured, given the higher, the higher liability with surgery versus dancing. I thought that there'd be even more emphasis on practicing in a simulated environment before practicing on real people, but there was no structured technical teaching modules, and you really learn on the job. I thought I'd do at least 5 to 10 ankles in a simulated environment prior to operating on a person, and that was not the case. Of course, it's graduated responsibility and you're under direct observation, but I definitely would have liked to have practiced a little more in a lower consequence environment.
So not being able to do that part of it, that brings to mind the question of, we all see people throughout our career who are technically excellent. They're slick surgeons. And so what do you think is necessary for an individual to get to that point where they're acknowledged as being really technically proficient surgeons?
Yeah, like you said, slickness and having good hands is a kind of an all-encompassing, these are all-encompassing terms for technical proficiency. And there's more tangible components to those, like not having a tremor and having good efficiency of movement. But there's
having good eyesight.
Good eyesight, that's key as well. But there's so much more that goes into it, and I'm constantly trying to deconstruct my mentors, the ones who I really aspire to be like, and trying to figure out what makes them so good. And sometimes they can't explicitly tell me how they got to where they are, and I don't think it's because they're all of them are prodigies. A lot of them are just really hard workers. And there's actually an excellent book called Skill. It's written by an orthopedic sports medicine surgeon, and it deconstructs slickness into actionable goals, and it also kind of dispels the myth of the prodigy. And I think that's the person that we're always picturing as trainees, we're like, oh, I should be just good at this right off the bat. And the book just has really helped break everything down and just give a linear path towards technical proficiency and beyond technical proficiency, essentially.
So just wanted to ask you a little bit about your experience with arthroscopy, since Tactile Knee is really focused on arthroscopy and also on arthroplasty. But in arthroscopy, what was your experience with learning arthroscopy and your comfort level and that whole sort of experience with it?
I think I had the standard junior resident introduction to arthroscopy, and turns out that's getting stuck in the fat pad and being disoriented in the knee. And initially you're like, wow, this feels terrible. And they're like, your preceptor's like, yeah, this is normal. This is how everybody starts out. I'm like, well, this is not ideal because you could be bumping around in there and it's not benign to bump into cartilage and things like that. So the main frustration was that, even though you start out like that, there wasn't an opportunity in between OR days to really go and work on it and come back better. You just could work on a few different things without having access to a solid simulator. And then you just had to hope that you would be better the next OR day. And that was frustrating for me because so much of my success in the past is built on just work ethic and just not stopping until you've perfected something.
And so it was concerning in terms of how comfortable you felt with the techniques?
Yeah, I was hoping it was going to be fun right off the bat, but when you're a little bit disoriented and especially being stuck in the fat pad, it's just not a great feeling. And so you're like, oh, do I want to do this for the rest of my career? Like this is, and it just, because I couldn't go away and work on it, the progression wasn't as quick as it is in other aspects of surgery. And so that was definitely frustrating for sure, because I had thoughts of being a top sports medicine surgeon, and when you're starting out and you're not able to just really make quick progress, that's frustrating. So.
And so then Dr. Ryan Martin, he asked you whether you were interested in testing out the Tactile Knee. What was your initial sort of thought about this, and then your subsequent sort of experience with things?
Initially, when I heard knee simulator, I'm like, oh, this is going to be another triangulation model, and that definitely has its limits. But knowing Dr. Martin like I do, he's a very in-depth thinker, to say the least, and he's so committed to technical excellence. I knew he wouldn't come out with a subpar product, and I knew he was going to perfect this knee until it was as close to a real human knee as possible. So I was very hopeful that this would be an excellent product and really improve upon the previous, triangulation simulators and things. So.
And so you got a knee and you went through it, I guess. And then what did you do with it?
Yeah, so I went through my junior and senior sports medicine rotations without a tactile knee. So I'm very jealous that my junior residents are going to have much earlier access to it than I did. But on a senior sports elective, I got it midway through. So 2 weeks in, I got a tactile model, and I'm like, wow, this thing's amazing. It's just completely simulating the knee, incredibly well. And so I started warming up with it in the morning before the OR. I have a 8-month-old infant, so I would get up with him, and then I'd be up early, so I'm like, all right, I'll go practice on my knee. And then when I started that rotation, I asked, how am I doing? They're like, oh, well, you're where most of our fellows start out. And I'm like, well, that's, not what I wanted to hear exactly. But and then I switched preceptors, and 2 weeks in, he was like, you're excellent. They're just making such rapid progress. And I didn't tell them that I had this secret weapon at home. He just thought I had gotten good out of nowhere.
So you have this at home. So literally, it's on your dining room table, or is it?
Yeah, much to my wife's chagrin, it's occasionally on the dining room table, and I'll come home sometimes and it'll be tucked away in the closet, so it's easy enough to set up and take down. It's very portable, and that's the one really good thing about, or one of the good things about it is that on this elective, I was not staying here in Calgary. I was staying in a hotel, but I could still bring it there and take it with me wherever I go, essentially. So
have knee will travel.
Yeah, definitely.
and so you've gotten some confidence and proficiency with it. And how has this affected your sort of career trajectory and your thoughts about sports medicine?
Yeah, I never felt like I was terrible at scoping. I had imagined that I'd be slick right off the bat and just flying around the knee, fixing menisci and doing double bundle PCLs, which I'm actually going to practice on the tactile model later today, which is kind of cool. But I could do all the things I was supposed to be able to do as a junior resident, but it just never felt slick. There wasn't good efficiency of movement, and I wasn't smooth around the knee, and I'd have sometimes difficulty getting into certain aspects of the knee. But now with the tactile knee, I can just troubleshoot at home and figure out why certain things were a struggle, and now I just feel much smoother in general. So,
and is that because it's more than just the knee itself, but the whole sort of body movement, positioning type of thing?
Yeah, the other simulators I'd tried in the past were just essentially triangulation simulators, and that's doesn't involve your whole body. And scoping a knee is a whole body experience. Essentially, you're putting the foot on your hip, and you're essentially driving the knee around, opening up the medial compartment with valgus, and then putting it into figure 4. And so that engages your core, engages your legs, and you're off kilter trying to balance things. And then while you're doing all that, you still have to have steady hands so you don't fall out of the joint. And so when you're sitting at your desk just triangulating, it's a much more artificial experience than what you get with the tactile knee. The tactile knee is, like I said, a whole body experience, and initially it's tough, but then you just you get so comfortable, and now it's super fun for me. I scoped the knee this morning, and I just had a great time. So
great. And so has this changed the trajectory of your career? Has it affected you in that way?
Yeah, I think it's definitely changed my my outlook going into sports medicine fellowship. I'm in the process of applying right now. So prior, I had hesitancy. I'm like, well, I hope I'll be good at this, and I hope I'll end up being excellent. But now that I have the tactile model, I'm like, oh, 100%. There's a very linear relationship to the work you put in on the tactile model to what you get in performance in the OR. And so that being said, I would love it if you guys come out with some more joints because the success, the comfort with the knee has translated to being better with the shoulder, but it'd still be nice to be able to work on shoulder arthroscopy and hip arthroscopy similar to the knee. So so right now I'm just really pumped about applying for my sports fellowships, and I have no qualms about it at all. So
great, that's great to hear, and I want to thank you for taking the time to do this with me, and I wish you the best of luck in your upcoming premium excellent sports medicine career.
Yeah, thank you so much. Well, thanks for having me, and thanks again for your product. It's been great.